So perhaps some of you can hear the tower bell. It's 10:30, the time we planned to start this session. I would like to welcome you on behalf of the whole consortium of Repairing the Present. My name is Lia Groenewoud and I will be your host for today. I will guide you through the program and I will introduce the different speakers. And we have created this program for you to help you in applying for the call of Repairing the Present. It's one call with 21 challenges. So you could also see it as 21 separate challenges. And what we will do in this session today is we will walk you through the application process. We'll explain to you the logic of how we have created this call and what you can expect when you apply for this call. We will give some time for questions and answers afterwards. Then there will be some time to explain to you what the fellowship program would look like, which partners are involved in that, and also what are the academy events and the prototyping parts that we have planned in this program. And lastly, we will share some details on how this all will be communicated. And then at the end, when we will be around 11:15, there will be again some time for questions and answers. Just for all of you to be informed, we are recording this session so that later on it can be shared on our YouTube channel and you and also others can refer back to it when you are preparing your application. We will also share the slides that we will share, so you can take notes or you can screenshots, but they will also become available for you. So let us start with the program for today. And firstly, I would like to introduce Rodolfo from InfoArt, who will talk you through the application process.
Thank you and good morning, everybody. I'm sure most of you by now have ended up visiting the call page that we have created on stars.eu. And I'm not sure about you, but for me at least, this is quite a big, extensive and rather complicated call that we have been creating. Because in fact, as Lee already said, we have 21 available positions within one call, but all within their own distinct regions, partnerships, and with their own distinct requirements and desires. And what I would like to do in the next 10, maybe 15 minutes is step by step take you through what we have also tried to write down in a couple of documents that are available online. But in some cases, it always helps to be talked through it. And this, of course, goes about the eligibility, who is eligible to apply for Repairing the Present. How have we prepared the application process? What is expected from you as applicants? After applying, what will happen during the evaluation, selection, of course, not very unimportant. How is the payment arranged for those selected? And lastly, I want to summarize all the links and places and ways of contact that we have prepared for you to stay in touch with us throughout this process and be able to reach out any moment you have questions or doubts. So let's dive right in and start with the eligibility. Repairing the Present is, of course, a START call, and most of you, I'm sure, are aware of what START stands for. It's about, of course, the crossovers between science, technology, and the arts, but with a heavy emphasis on the arts and artists. That's also what we follow here. So this is a call specifically designed for artists to apply and artist collectives. A group of artists working together under a third name or under a distinct name and producing under that name rather than under their own name. It's very important. This call is not open for researchers or companies of any other kind. No, it's directed at individual autonomous artists. Well, it's very difficult to say exactly what an artist is or when you are an artist, but we take at least one important sentence as our starting point, and that is, of course, that you must see your artistic work or your artistic career as a professional occupation that forms the core of what you do on a daily basis. In what form exactly, how large your studio is, what kind of projects you exactly do is not relevant in terms of eligibility and will all be part of course, the evaluation process. Then if you are interested to apply to any of the challenges that we have prepared, there are basically 4 steps to follow. First, the challenges themselves. On the website, when you scroll down on the open call page, you will see them one by one. They are all clickable, and upon clicking, you will get some more inside information on who is involved, what the challenge is about, what the contours are, and a brief introduction video by the Regional Start Center that has prepared the challenge. Also, and you will find it also in a button on that same page, they are joined together in a booklet. You can download that booklet and look at it, you print it, or look at it in another way and go through the 21 challenges. What we have said is that in your application, you can apply to up to 3 challenges. Basically, applying to each challenge is an individual application because your application will be reviewed for that challenge only. To increase your chances, but also to increase our options, we said it is possible to apply to up to 3 challenges, but the decision is yours as an artist. You can apply to 1, to 2, or to 3. For each extra challenge that you apply for, it means a little bit of an extension of the application process. The first part is the same for everybody. We will come to that later, but the specific challenges parts are, of course, new each time you apply for a new challenge. When you decided to go with us to apply to one or more of the challenges, you will have to go to the Funding Box platform, which is the platform where we have it hosted, complete the application process, and be sure to have done so, to have submitted your application before the 21st of November. This is going to be a very hard deadline. I know also from experience, especially for art calls, that we are used to deadline extensions. Let me be very clear, this will not happen here. And the very reason is that we do not have the time afterwards. So this is the deadline. If you have not submitted by the 21st at 1 CEST, you will not be eligible or you'll not be taken into account. So step 1, the 3 challenges. As I said before, each challenge has its own subpage on the Start EU website and is also mentioned in the booklet. And each challenge has a couple of parts. First of all, a problem statement. Each challenge is rooted in a local problem or local context. That local context is always in the direct surrounding of the Start Regional Center involved. There's also a nice image. I do not think I have it here, but where the regional centers are located, it's across Europe, from Cyprus to Barcelona and from Rome to Denmark. And all those challenges are directly related to those local contexts. They are not just designed by the Regional Start Center, but they are designed by the Regional Start Center in collaboration with a whole group of other actors. We call them the local expert groups. You also find who they are and where they come from on that same webpage. These are representatives from arts, but also from industry, from science, and from policy that have thought with us as individual regional centers to design the challenges, and who will also, in one way or another, play a role in the execution of your fellowship projects. At least one of them is a little bit back, please. At least one of them is the fellowship partner. That organization, that partner will be heavily involved, and the others to another extent. Then the characteristics, they basically list what we have available for you to work with or to work on. Sometimes there are some links. And as I mentioned before, there's a brief video introducing each challenge for you for more understanding. Now, yes. Once you have selected them, or know at least that you want to apply to at least one, you go to the Funding Box platform and you need to create an account. This account makes it possible for us, of course, to evaluate your application. Very briefly, how this works, we will do everything on the back end on the platform itself. So you have an account, you create your application on that account, and we forward your application to the jurors, to the evaluators, also on the platform itself. It never leaves the platform, and this information will never be stored on other servers or shared publicly in any other way. Once you have done that, then you will see this screen on the left, and it looks a lot more freaky than it is. These are the parts that you have to fill in your application. They basically consist of 5 different topics, of which 2 are, of course, the most important ones. First, the artist profile, some general information plus CV. Most of you will probably have that ready. And the last 2, questions for statistical purposes and information consent, are very, very brief. And they basically ask from you to consent, that to agree that we share your proposal with jurors for the sake of evaluating in the context of SARTs of repairing the present. The other 2, portfolio submission and challenge proposal submission, are of course the body of your application. And they are a little bit distinct compared to probably most other applications that you have gone through. Portfolio submission is about what you have done in the past. But it is not just uploading a PDF with a whole group and a whole bunch of projects that you have done. No, we ask you to select yourselves at least 2 and maximally 4 representative projects from your history, from your portfolio, that have some sort of relationship with the challenge that you're applying for, or the bigger context of repairing the present that you have read about and that you have heard about. Then the challenge proposal itself, that of course is up to 3 times. You have to go through it once if you only select 1 challenge, etc., etc. And for each challenge that you submit to, we ask you to fill a couple of questions. Some of them are quite easy to go through. They are a list where you have to select. Others are, we ask you to already start thinking about what you want to do in this fellowship, what kind of project you want to be setting up. And we offer you the possibility to add to that a brief written description, to upload that, and to upload also a very brief video where you explain the same project. The reason why we ask for both is, of course, that we are highly aware that for some of you, writing is the way to express your ideas, and for others, it might be talking or visuals. And with this, we hope to be able to serve everybody. Good to conclude on the last part is that once you go through the application process, all the way at the bottom, you can export the total application as a PDF. I recommend you to do that. You can see all the fields and just fill them in whenever you have time. You can also do that online, and your application will be saved per section. But, and this is very important, it will only be saved if you have completed all the mandatory fields in that section. If you have forgotten 1 or 2 mandatory fields, you go out, next time you will be disappointed because what you've done previously will not be saved. That's important to know. Of course, you can also prepare everything offline and fill it in the end completely in one go. Yeah. Then after the deadline, we will go through a 2-round evaluation process. And we have some nice images also for you on the website to look into it a little bit more in depth, and of course in the guide for applicants. Here I want to focus on the type of evaluation that we have designed. The first round will be done by the regional start centers themselves and potentially some other experts that we have invited, who are, for instance, representatives from the fellowship partner that we have included, or a reason. In this first round, we will be focusing on 3 types of evaluation. Of course, the artistic excellence, that is the portfolio submission. So do we have the feeling that what you have done in the past gives a clear idea that your work in this fellowship will also be in the area that we are looking for. It's important to realize here that we will be comparing this to the goals of START and Repairing the Present more than to autonomous artistic quality goals. Secondly, the innovation potential. You are applying for an art call, but in the context of innovation, it's good to know that the funding that we have does not come from an art grant, but from an innovation grant, digital innovation grant. And that means that although these are going to be art fellowships, art experiments, and artistic prototypes, we will be looking at your proposals and of course also the execution later on through the lens of the potential for innovation. And innovation in the sense that the ideas that you develop, the prototypes that you develop, have the possibility to either continue progressing by themselves or be a source of inspiration or input to other parties for their innovation purposes. And lastly, of course, implementation with the program and the goals behind the program. Then if you have passed that first round, you will be invited to the jury day. We will invite 3 candidates per challenge to present to the jury. And one of those 3 will be, of course, the winner. Some of the regional START centers have prepared a jury day physically in that center, and it lists per START center who does that. Others will do it digitally from a distance. At the jury day, of course, a new round of evaluation comes. You get a new chance to present your proposal in person or digitally to the jury, answer questions, and they will look at the same things as that the initial evaluators looked at in the first round, but anew, and they will look more specifically in some other aspects of your proposal that have not been evaluated in the first round. They will look specifically at the fit with the regional challenge. So in the jury, there is a larger representation from the LEC, for instance, the local expert group that has designed the regional challenge. They will look more specifically on what kind of experiment and prototype you're envisioning to be creating in your fellowship, what kind of outcome we can expect. Of course, this is never 100% certain, but with the eyes on that we want to present it at Maxi and ZKM towards the end of the program, it's important to look at that as well. And last but not least, here we will also go a little bit more in depth as to how you are planning to execute the project and if the budget is realistic and achievable for that. This is again in a schematic form, how this all works with all the days, so that you know it. You can put them with pencil in your agenda already if you have decided to apply. And the winners will be announced by the end of January. The official starting date of the fellowship will be the 1st of February. Then how does the payment work? As I said in the beginning, we are one program, one call, 21 sub-calls, 21 challenges, but of course one process and also one payment schedule. The payment for these fellowship positions is fixed and is a lump sum. This means 2 things. It cannot become more, it cannot become less, unless you do not execute the project as you described in your proposal. And lump sum means we do not ask you for detailed breakdowns as to what you will spend on A, B, C, D, E. During the jury day, we will have a discussion whether it's realistic and achievable to do whatever you propose for this total budget. But lump sum means you are relatively free to decide for yourselves how you spend the budget. Apart from the 40,000 euros that are part of the fellowship, each artist invited to the jury day will get a mini grant of 750 euros for the ones that are asked to present digitally and 1,500 euros to cover travel expenses for the ones that are invited to present physically at the regional START center. Now, you see that we have divided the fellowship budget in 3 moments of payment, and they are connected to the phases of the fellowship. So if you are selected, you will receive in the beginning, after signing the contract, of course, 16,000 euros. So this is, I think, 40% of the total to start off and to start working. In the summer of 2022, probably in August, you will have completed phase 4, which is basically the completion of the fellowship itself, the research, the experimentation, and the production phase. We will, well, check is maybe a little bit of a strange word, but of course you will present to us what you have done. And based on that, we will release a second payment of 12,000 euros. Then after summer is the period of presentation. We call that the prototyping park, and they will be explained by Chiara from Maxi later on in this presentation. But the fellowship itself only ends after we have concluded these presentations. And that is the moment that you will receive the final part of the payment, again, 12,000 euros, which will be transferred by November next year. So that is just a very brief introduction and go through on the background, the ideas, the setup, and all the steps in applying to repairing the present. There are a couple of documents underlying, as you have seen. The links are here again. I'm pretty sure that most of the questions you have are answered in the Guide for Applicants or the FAQ. The FAQ is being updated continuously based on new questions that we are receiving. And should you have not found the answer to any of your questions, have doubts about anything in this process, we have set up a mailbox. It's called hello@repairingthepresent.eu, where you are always free to ask your questions and you will guaranteed receive an answer to them. I think that's it for now. For the rest of this morning, I will be looking at the chat. So if you have questions later on, I think there's a Q&A now, right, Leah? Short Q&A. But if you have questions after this Q&A, feel free to put them in the chat or mail them later on.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Rodolfo, for explaining. It's been a lot of information. We now have about 10 to 15 minutes to tackle some of the questions if they are present already. You can either raise your hand in Zoom or you could ask your question in the chat and we can give you the floor. Rosanna, please.
Hi everyone. Thank you very much. I have a question about the participation. I have a collective with another artist that we have been working on these subjects of art, technology, and science. But our CV as a collective is not so strong because it's very recent as our CV as an individual artist. It will be worth it to apply individually instead of together as a collective?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for this question, Rosanna. It's a very good question. So if I understand you correctly, you want to apply as a collective?
Yes.
But you've only recently established that collective and you have a past
exactly.
as individual artists.
Exactly. As a collective, we have 1.5 years of experience, but as individual artists, we have our whole career. So obviously, as a collective, we are not as strong. No.
Well, in that case, I would recommend you to apply as a collective, because I think in the execution, you want to do this as a collective and not as individual artists. But in the portfolio submission, submit 2 to 4 projects, from your past, and that could be individual projects. Fantastic. It would be good to add, because there are a couple of fields where you can comment.
Yes.
To add in there how we should be reading this. This is a project by yourself or by your collective artists, your artists in the collective. Done before the start of the collective, but with a good relationship to what you are proposing and going to do in this fellowship.
Oh, fantastic.
If you do it like that, I think it will be okay. At the same time, it's also good from the backside that you send a brief email about this to the mailbox.
Yes.
So that we also know it, should any questions by the jurors pop up later on, that we know of the situation.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and please include then also the name of the Funding Bucks account under which you created this application, so we can track it back to the right one.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Simon.
Hello, thank you very much for the presentation. Actually, I have two questions. First question is in relation to the first and second phase of selection. What is the difference between the selection committee? At the first round, you said there's the regional partners with their, let's say, expert teams that are evaluating and making the first round. And what is there the composition of the second jury? Is it the same, or is there any difference there? And the second question I would ask is maybe a bit specific for Slovenia, where I come from. And let's say that most of the artists here in Slovenia are in this special self-employed in arts and then getting some subsidies also from the government, but they have a quorum of about 20,000 euros annually, which is the maximum for them not to lose this. So in this way, if artists get directly the 40,000, this basically kind of hinders their ability to kind of keep this status alive. I know in other countries there's the complete opposite, you know, where you have a minimum of let's say one number and you have as an artist to make more. But in Slovenia it's the other way around, and I'm wondering, is it the artist that gets the entirety of this grant, or can it be transferred to the partners with which he's working with? Let's say an example, if someone is doing a physical prototype with a company that is doing the manufacturing, you understand the question? Okay.
I understand the question. You have two questions. Let me tackle the first one, and the second one will be answered by Rodolfo. So related to the selection commission, the first part will be on the application you had in the first round, where we have an internal committee, which is created by the regional start centers with some people they attract to evaluate it. They will create a short list out of all the applications. Those will be presented to the local expert group, and the local expert group will select the top 3 candidates from all the applicants for that challenge. Those top 3 applicants per challenge, they will be invited for a webinar on December 13th, where they will get additional information, and they will also get the time until January 10th to additionally create extra input about the application or prepare for that so that they can inform the jury with that. Within the jury, it's a smaller committee. The regional centers will have about 5 to 6, 7, 8 jury members. And during the webinar session on December 13th, you will be informed who will be the jury of the final selection. Does that answer your first question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, then Rodolfo for the second one.
Yeah, and concerning the second, I don't know the Slovenian situation very well, but if I understand you correct, Simon, if you are a Slovenian artist getting national funding for your art practice, and in addition, you get European funding, then you could potentially lose your national funding if it surpasses a certain amount. Is that correct?
Yes, there is a quorum, or I said a benchmark of 20,000 that an artist in Slovenia can earn with his practice if he's being nationally supported. So getting 40,000 directly would basically fill up his 2 years plus additional 1 year. It hinders a much, and I'm just thinking if there are ways of,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, it is not possible to not transfer the money to the artist because that's the way the whole program is set up. What we could look at, but it's way too detailed for now, I suggest you send me an email on hello@preparingthepresent, because I'm quite curious about this situation. There might be ways we can think about indeed pinpointing in the budget who you want to be collaborating with, and in that way there might be something possible. But please send an email to that. I'm managing the mailbox as well, so I will read it and I will reply to you and also do a little bit of research on how this works and what your risk is. Is that okay?
Great, thank you very much. I'll be sending it today.
Great, and if there are other artists from Slovenia listening in today, well, send an email to hello@repairingthepresence if you're interested in that answer as well, and we'll get back to you. In the meantime, there is a question in the chat. So Rodolfo, I'll read it out to you and to the others. In my artistic career, I have some creative works that have to do with digital manufacturing and community engagement that have a lot to do with the themes of the challenges. What is the criteria for an artistic work versus a work as a maker? The maker is an artist?
I do not completely understand, Gianmarco. Do you mean that these are community developed works instead of individually developed works? Is that correct, or is it something else? Maybe you can elaborate on it? If you're here, Gianmarco.
Yes. Hello. So,
hello.
Is a work as a maker, making things, a project, and then include a part with the community engagement.
Yes.
So it's something that can be produced in Fab Lab, let's say, with 3D printing, laser cutting, and then this creation can be used in community engagement. So, but the thing is, a maker is an artist.
Yes.
Because so this is also the other question.
Okay, so I think there is no problem with the eligibility of projects like that. To be first, what is important is, of course, that we get a good understanding of your role in that process. Were you the head, the lead, the one leading and designing it, or just part of a bigger process of somebody else? That is important to know. Secondly, just to make it a little bit more clear, we take the eligibility of the artist quite wide, but we stop mainly where something becomes purely instrumental or commercially driven. So, for instance, if you submit a project where you have been given an assignment by a company to create a very specific work that they basically have requested, then there could be a problem with eligibility. But as long as there is a strong degree of artistic autonomy and artistic creation in the project conducted, a very lot is possible, including indeed processes where communities are engaged or other makers are engaged. Okay. I hope that answers your question, Gianmarco.
Thank you. Yes, all the process, the ideas will be from me, so no other companies or clients involved, and even if it's like a maker project, will be a participatory art somehow project. So it's something that I think can be entered in the open call. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. One will be from Michelle and the other one is raised by Jennifer in the chat. If in the meantime you have questions as well, you can ask them in the chat, or later on, after we have talked through the different elements of the fellowship, there will be another round of Q&As. First, Michelle, I would like to give the floor to you.
Hello. Thank you for this session and all the information. I would like to know how much in consideration the committee takes, for example, like the artists who graduated recently. For example, like I graduated like a few months ago and I have maybe 1 or 2 work that could fit the criteria, but not like a lot of work which shows a lot of previous experience. So how much that would influence the evaluation, considering the proposal also on the other hand?
Shall I answer that, Leah, or do you want to do that? Okay. So first of all, we do not have a hard requirement on amounts of years of graduation or experience. So you are eligible to apply even if you recently graduated. The only thing that we have built in is indeed that you must submit at least 2 projects, past projects that are representative. With that, we intend to separate artists that see this as their first project from artists that are building their practice and their career and want to continue that in repairing the present as well. If you have them, you are perfectly eligible to apply. It is not an eligibility criteria per se, the age and experience. Of course, the quality of the portfolio and of the work submitted is a criterion. But that's not always related to age or experience. you must realize, on the other hand, that especially for young artists, a starting artist, the grant is relatively large. The amount of partners you will be involved with is broad, diverse, and are a lot. And also the stage that we will present the outcomes is quite an internationally high stage. So, but that's more up to you and then up to us if you feel comfortable and feel you are ready to engage in such a process.
Yeah, we do encourage you to submit if you have these two projects. And also every regional center, well, they search for different characteristics. So also read carefully through what they are reading. I know some are very much interested in those that are having this new perspective, as long as you show that in your proposal, how you would like to integrate that. And also for all of you to understand, the regional centers will be there also to guide and support you as an artist, and we will explain that a little bit later in the next session with the fellowships, what type of innovation catalysts we have to support the artists in these endeavors. Then a question from Jennifer. What is the difference between a collective and a design studio?
I think there are many differences. Well, first of all, there are many types of design studios, Jennifer. So there are definitely design studios who are perfectly eligible to apply to Repairing the Present. And that includes all design studios that have at least part of their works done in an autonomous way. Self-designed, self-developed, self-produced, let's say. The bar ends, or the line stops at design studios who only and solely respond to client requests or client engagements. Then collectives art collectives are usually groups of artists that work under a separate name, and as a core do not have the production of designs or products or outcomes, but of course of art projects where they feel they have a good, strong relationship towards each other in the way that they can produce more interesting works than they could do individually. But it differs on an individual basis whether you could call it a collective or a design studio and whether it's eligible. If you have doubts, I recommend that you just send an email to the email inbox and that I can look at your individual situation.
Okay, thank you. I've seen your question, Giuseppe. We will answer that in the next Q&A session. For now, I would like to give the floor to Alessio from Sony Labs, who will inform us more about the fellowship trajectory. So I will share the screen again. And Alessio, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. I don't know why I cannot start my video because it says that's the okay. Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, I'm here. Okay, thank you, everybody. I am Alessandro Londei from Sony CSL Paris and now Rome, and I have the responsibility for, say, supervising all the 21 fellowships during the Repairing the Present project. And in general, as you can see, we organized the artistic experience in some phases. So we expect that an artist should evolve during the whole period and enter into details about its idea in artwork, and they have more or less 3 months to focus about the idea and to share what they think about the final installation with the experts, whereas the last 3 months will be used to technically and practically during making the final prototype. So I want to stress the fact that this the full project is based on a very strong interaction between arts and science through the tools given by the artistic experiences and the technological tools. This is really very, very crucial, because we think that the important aspect is that science and art can cooperate together and give some new point of view to approach and to address the problem of repairing the present, as I said. So as you can see, mainly you have 5 main phases, where at the beginning, each artist had who selected some specific challenge. They want to go in depth, and they would need some support for finalizing the idea with what we call the local expert group. Afterward, I will go in detail about all the single phases. So following the first one, there will be the concept phase, where in general the artists will be asked to interact with research institutions or research and development departments in order to say fix every kind of technical, technological, or scientific aspect that could be a problem during the imagined artwork that is going to be realized. Then the evaluation phase. So we expect that the artist will show the idea and maybe some kind of prototype to the public in order to show what is the effect of the artistic idea and what it could be the impact on the society and the public. In order also to assess the real impact of the idea that the artist proposed. And then, as you can see, the production phase is the longest one. It will last at most 3 months. It depends on the challenges. And during this period, the artist will realize physically the prototype until the last phase, the exhibiting phase, where there will be some exhibition, the main one in the Maxi Museum in Rome, and other exhibitions organized in other countries. Yeah, next slide, please. Thank you. So just to go a bit in detail, as I said, the first phase, called the reflection phase, is going to be used by the artist. Okay, at first, just to set up their work in the different regions, physically or virtually, depends on the evolution of these fellowships. So in general, the first interaction will be, as I mentioned before, with what we call the local expert group. Each region will have a group of experts, both on the artistic side and on the scientific side, where the artists will be able to present the idea and to discuss with them about not only the feasibility of this idea, but also to refine every kind of aspect of what you want to realize. So we are going to bootstrap the interaction between the artist and all the artists and the regional members, which are all the researchers and whoever has a responsibility in this project, in order to be supported in every kind of problem. And also, this first month is very important to set up all the physical problems like spaces, materials, and all the needings that artists could need in the future in order to realize physically the artwork. After that, I passed to the concept phase, where after 1 month, we expect that every artist could come up with a final project for the artwork. So not only the main idea, but also the whole process for the idea realization. And this is going again to be supported by the local expert group and the regional experts who will follow step by step the workflow of each artist. And then there will be the first artist plenary meeting, what we call APM. This is an innovation in this kind of approaches, because we don't only want that all the artists simply make their idea and go to the end of their project, but also that they can have the possibility to compare their ideas and the techniques with all the other artists. So we are going to organize these meetings at most 3 times over the full period, in order to give the possibility to every artist to show what he is doing, or what is going to do in the future. And at the same time, we will ask all the other artists to give a kind of say ranking of similarity between their own work and what all the others are doing. In this case, we are going to collect this data, which won't be, say, evaluation about I don't know, the aesthetics or the wellness of the artistic idea, but in general to understand if over time all the artists can be contaminated by the others' ideas. And at the end of the full process, we are going to analyze this data in order to see if there is an actual contamination and interaction between artists. And maybe, who knows, in future, artists could also decide to put their ideas together and make some other project in a collaborative way. So let's move to the third phase, the so-called evaluation phase, where, as I said, the idea has been already established, and mainly all the possible issues in realizing the final artwork should be solved or addressed in some way. And so the artists will start to develop the artwork with the support of the regional partners. And also the artists will have another possibility to interact with local expert groups and other stakeholders in order to maybe change the artwork direction, or finalize in a different way after all the discussions what is going to do at the end. So the last phase, which will last 3 months, will be devoted to the effective development of the artwork. So we expect that after 6 months totally, more or less, every artist will realize a prototype of the artwork, and this prototype should be ready for exhibitions that will be done in the future. Over the 3 months, there'll always be a collaboration between every artist and the local expert groups that will support artists in every kind of problems they could have. And we expect that in the last 3 months, we should have one, or at least one, but say 2 other artist plenary meetings, in order to check how people maybe change their minds during this path, artistic and scientific path, and if the collaboration and the presentations of their artwork can change their minds. In general, as you can see in the center, there is this mysterious figure called innovation catalyst. So every artist will have a kind of their own angel that will support their workflow at any time. So the innovation catalyst will be a person who will follow the workflow and will keep the contact with the local expert groups, all the stakeholders, and trying to support the artist for every kind of problem or issue, both technical, scientific, or artistic, that could be in the whole process. So every one of the artists will have this figure next to him for all the full period, and it will be a kind of person that can be asked for any kind of problems or support. I think in general, this is the point. Of course, I will be here for any kind of questions or comments or ideas that you may have during this meeting. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you, Alessandro. So if you have questions on the fellowships, we can tackle them later on. Thank you for this part. And as Alessandro said, it will be about the collaborations of you and artists with the local expert groups, the fellowship partners, the scientists, the industry. So there is this bigger network around it. And that also leads to the next part within the fellowship trajectory. Those are the academy events. I will shortly introduce them to you. They are being coordinated by our partner Onassis. And the academy events are there to support the research, but also to disseminate and to get in contact with a lot of different stakeholders for you during the development of the artwork, but also afterwards when we are in the dissemination phase and when we are in the prototyping parks showing the results of it. So the goals of the academy events are to show the wider reach of how the artists' proposals and the challenges tackle the European Green Deal and the new Bauhaus, and in which way we can interact and inspire a larger community around it. So the types of events and all the different regional start centers have prepared different types of events, and in some the artists will be involved, in others they can be involved. There's also room for the artists to say, like, I think this is essential for my process, and we can integrate it in a type of academic events. But they are hands-on learning activities. They are different types of symposia or matchmaking events to make sure that the work we are doing as a group, because the artists that will be selected will become part of our Repairing the Present group, could have a bigger spillover and a bigger impact by sharing and talking, investigating, and collaboratively working towards this goal. So if you think about the type of academy events, networking, and matchmaking events, those could be roundtable discussions, seminars, workshops, maker labs, school labs, hackathons, educational programs, or trainings. The precise types of events that will be developed and which are planned for at each regional start centers, those will be discussed with the selected artists when they start with their fellowship. So that's the part related to the additional events and activities that will be organized alongside the production of the artistic prototypes that will be exhibited. And that brings me also to the next part. That's, of course, where it will be exhibited and the new concept, how we want to exhibit it in the prototype park. So I would like to give the floor to Chiara from Maxi.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chiara Bertini, curator at Maxi. Our team will be responsible of the prototyping parks coordination. So I want to say that all the final 21 outcomes of the fellowship from the Repairing the Presence residency will have the possibility to be showcased at Maxi Museum here in Rome or in ZKM Center for Art and Media in Karlsruhe, Germany, and as well as the Regional Star Center from September through December 2022, so directly after the end of the prototyping residency in July. The joint Repairing the Present prototyping park exhibition will be investigating the process behind the making of the artistic prototypes. Maxi will be displaying the creative process of the selected resident artists as well as the respective research teams. In ZKM will be concentrating their effort on the contribution offered by the local expert group and the possible spillover to industry. So we will split the discourse in two sections, but we will be organizing the exhibition always together in coordination. And for sure, the aim is to enlighten the role of arts in innovation process as well to promote START's vision among the general public, facilitating the public awareness of both the European Green Deal mission and the new European Bauhaus values, like a journey to savor together with researchers, scientists, artists, business, a dynamic and powerful desire to envision a different and better future for Europe, fostering the introduction of innovative practices for democracy, sustainability, and ecological transition. For sure, I'm here to discuss with you with details if you need more explanation about the exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you, Chiara, for that. And then we have talked about how you can apply. If you apply, what kind of trajectory you can expect, how you are supported throughout this fellowship program, and how the Innovation Catalyst will give a role for that. We have explained different events which the regional START centers will organize additionally to that. In the end, also where you will present it and in what kind of formats we will do that. And then if we come to the last part of what we as a consortium have to offer, and that's of course also to communicate about repairing the present. And there I would like to give the floor to Anna from Ars Electronica.
Thank you, Leah. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna, communications manager at Ars Electronica and also responsible for the communication strategy for repairing the present. And I will keep it rather brief, but I just want to quickly give you an idea of the communication activities that we'll be doing throughout the project, as that I believe is of interest to anyone that is part of the project, any artist that will be made visible and promoted through our efforts, our communication efforts. I think what's important is that artists will be promoted on both the Start2U channels and the partners communication channels, which means there's quite a huge following coming from both these strands. As you probably already know, STARTS is a large initiative with a great following in itself, and as well the consortium involves 12 large established institutions and around Europe that together have also an impressive following. I think as artists have a major role in the project, we will be focusing a lot on their work and the outcomes of their work. So there'll be thorough documentation of the fellowship, storytelling around the issues tackled in them, as well as artists and their work, just to make once again the message of STARTS clear, and that is that artists do have can play a role in the innovation processes, and then artistic perspectives do have the potential to create that change that we all want to see. And I think one point that is very important to us is that we also want to give you a voice, and we welcome your input in the direction that these communication efforts will go, because it's essentially about your work, the challenges that you're tackling with your work, as well as your role in society. So the artist's role in society in general, in contemporary society in particular. And these messages will, of course, address the larger public, but as well as industry and research fields that need to kind of become more aware of the potential of that role, we believe. And as you can see in the slide, we've got websites, both Start2U and Partners website, that will feature blog articles as well on specific topics, or interviews with local experts, artists, whatever the partners feel inspired to do. Regular newsletters, again, both Start2U channels and the partners channels, and obviously social media. And in terms of more real life in-person communication, we'll have press conferences connected to the start of the fellowship and the prototyping parks, events that Leah mentioned earlier, which will also ensure that your project is disseminated, and obviously the crowning moment of the prototyping parks. And I think I'll leave it here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all consortium partners for presenting these parts in the Repairing the Present program. Well, we hope, of course, that you are enthusiastic about this goal and that you start to apply, or if you already started, that you got the support to improve and continue your application. We would like to give the floor now again to some questions. And in the meantime, there has also been some questions in the chat, so I will quickly go through them to address them, and then new ones can be added there or raise the hands. And the first one was from Giuseppe, related to the budget. What is included in the budget that the artist will get? Rodolfo, could you please specify that?
Yes, I also started to answer directly in the chat itself. So I answered the budget question in the chat.
Yeah, for those that are not seeing the chat later on, we're looking back at it. So it would be nice to have a short answer for it.
Right, for the video. Okay. So the budget is meant to complete the whole fellowship. This is including the production of the presentable prototype and at least a shipment towards a presentation location at the end of the period. The events that were talked about will be organized and facilitated by the regional centers. The presentation itself, or the exhibition at the end of the fellowship at either Maxi in Rome or ZKM in Karlsruhe, will of course be organized by those locations and the wider consortium. But as an artist, you will be given a lump sum of 40,000 euros plus a little bit mini grant if you're attending a jury day. And that is supposed to cover your time, your expenses, potential people that you need to collaborate with, but that's your decision, of course, and the production of the final outcome.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Giuseppe? And I think also an additional question in that same came from Mila. Are there other questions you would like to ask to the different partners we have here?
Yeah, sorry, I cannot find a hand, so if that's okay, I'll just speak.
Go ahead.
I'm a choreographer and interaction designer, and so I was wondering if part of my proposal will be performances, installations, meaning that can I propose the budget as performances? I mean, can I use that budget as in part of my performances, like the production that I will use to perform, or does that have to be an object that is inanimate?
I think for that you will have to look at the different challenges. Every challenge has described a bit about the fellowship characteristics and what they are searching for. So there are differences per challenge. The budget is to cover everything, but have in mind that in the end we want to exhibit something, and that the goal of this call is to work towards ways how we can communicate and visualize and potentially innovate about the challenge you have covered. And if an installation performance is your way of expressing that, that is a possibility.
All right, thank you.
There is another question in the chat. Can I collaborate with 2 other artists to apply collectively? Rodolfo.
In principle, no, Sandipan. The idea is that you apply either as an individual artist or as a collective, but then the application should come from the collective itself, and the collective will also be the beneficiary. So it must be registered. Of course, you can collaborate with other artists in your project. That is up to you. But that is something that you can describe in your proposal and you can present to the jury. But the way we will evaluate your proposal and we will evaluate the artistic quality of your proposal will be directed towards one applicant, either an individual artist or a collective. I hope that is clear. Yeah.
Sorry, maybe in that regard. So if I'm working in a collective, but we don't have a legal status, doesn't count as a collective.
No, that the beneficiary would then not be the collective. So the beneficiary would, for instance, be you.
Yeah.
But you would execute the project in collaboration with others.
So what do you mean? Like, so it means the collective is a figure, right? So it's not a natural person.
Correct.
Okay.
There are a lot of collectives out there that produce and present under a name which is other than their own, which is a name that they have defined to collaborate under. And they have established that as a legal entity, for instance, with a bank account. If that is the case, then the collective can be the applicant. In any other situation, it has to be a natural person that applies.
Thank you.
We're keeping the floor open for questions that pop up. This is your chance to get the insights to prepare for your application. Note that the deadline is on Sunday, November 21st at 1 o'clock. So we have a deadline at noon. But you are always welcome to submit earlier if your application is already ready. Once you have submitted, it's your final application. If there are new questions, we will cover them now. The first one from Christina. Are fellows expected to move to the city where the collaboration regional start center is based, or can the work be done remotely? That's a good question, especially in these times. And that is also something part of your proposal, what you would like to suggest and how you would collaborate. It's not an artist in residence in that sense that you have to be there continuously, but that also depends on the different types of challenges that have been written. So read that carefully. A lot of regional centers will expect you to come there several times, of course, to collaborate, but you don't have to live there. But that's all part of the budget to also cover these type of travel expenses. Another question, can I pay technical work as coding?
So I think Jan means to subcontract somebody else to do the coding. Of course, that is perfectly fine.
Jennifer, you have a question?
Yes, sorry to keep asking about this collective versus other entities question, but just to clarify, if you are not legally registered as a collective, so we're in Germany right now, and you apply as a singular artist, but you plan to collaborate with other artists, could the work that you have done collectively with other artists be used in your portfolio and CV, even though you did that work with other people?
Are you now talking about work you have done or the work you are planning to do for this?
The work that we have done has been done collectively, but we are not legally registered as a collective. And we also plan to collaborate during the START program.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. You can put that project in the portfolio submission and describe how it was a collaborative or even collective project. And people that produce that will also be involved in here. Just for the sake of who is our first point of contact and who is our direct artist that we relate to, if the collective does not have its own establishment, legal establishment or bank account, then it must be an individual person, for instance, you. And that means that the funds will be transferred to you, and it's up to you how to distribute it, for instance, or how to involve others. And when it comes to the interaction moments, the events, and the direct line of communication between the regional start center where you have your fellowship and you or and the executor, it will primarily go through the one applying. But of course, it is possible to say, you know, we want to execute this collaboratively, and we have done things collaboratively in the past to prove that that is sound. Just be aware, of course, that the budget remains the same for everybody. So if you involve more people, that's of course your own decision how you then distribute the budget amongst yourselves.
Okay, thank you.
Rosanna, do you have a new question? I think the hand is still raised. There is a question in the chat. Is it possible to present different proposals? It's possible to present one proposal per challenge, but you can present different proposals to different challenges. So you can create 3 different types of proposals for 3 different types of challenges.
It is good to realize that you will only be invited to one final, the one jury day. So should in the first round you be selected or pre-selected by multiple regional centers or multiple challenges, then we still select the one that you preferred, where you've presented. That's why we have this 1, 2, 3. You have to, that is a ranking from you. So the one that you wish to collaborate on or to work on most eagerly should be your number 1. And if you get selected for 2 or 3, you will only be invited to your top priority or your highest priority.
Can we form a new collective now and show our individual portfolios as the collective portfolio?
Yes, you can form a new collective now. It is important that you will start the fellowship at February 1st, and we want to transfer the first funds in February. So if you are applying as a collective, you need to make sure that we can actually do that by February next year, that things are done and arranged for by that moment. Showing the individual portfolios as a collective portfolio is a bit difficult in the setup. We ask you to present projects rather than individual portfolios, 2 to 4 projects. You can decide to present 1 project for each person in the collective, or 2 if there are 2 persons in the collective. But again, just like with earlier questions, please in the notes or in the parts where we ask you to describe, make sure that we understand how you are treating this, that you're applying as a collective, but you can only submit previous projects as individuals, and that's how you decided to do that.
Yeah, there is in the application form for every time you enter a portfolio section, there is the question, are there collaborating artists? So that's also already a question there to be sure that you don't forget to mention that. Then there is a new question from Rebecca. Is there a budget template that we need to fill in and submit in with the application form? Yes, that will be there, but that will be only for those that are shortlisted, and that will be shared during the webinar on December 13th. So for this stage, we will not look at how the budget is distributed. We will ask that because we realize that that is a bit more preparation, and that's also why there is a fee for those that are selected to present to the jury to further elaborate on their proposal. Then there is an administrative question. Do we have to keep all the receipts for budget reporting?
I can answer that question. In principle, the answer is no, but there's a catch here. This is EU money, this is public money, and it needs to be possible to control or check whether that money is actually spent in accordance with why you have received that money. That means you need to make sure that if we ask the question, did this money actually go to the project that you have been carrying out, you need to be able to present proof that it has. That could be receipts, that could be travel arrangements, that could be an agenda, that could also be the outcome, saying this is what I did. I was there at the final presentation and all the money went into preparing this. It is, on the other hand, a lump sum, which means we do not expect you to follow the same kind of rigid time scheduling or time writing or other things as we have as direct beneficiaries of an EU project. So it's up to you how you collect this, but I would advise that at least you have some sort of minimum administration, that if we ask the question, how did it go financially, that you can answer that question without any reasonable doubt that the money went towards the project.
One more question from my side, if I may. Simon here again. Yeah, regarding this, the budgets and everything, I imagine that, of course, the phases of development are very, as was presented before, are not very rigid. So if the project's perceived that the production phase, let's say if he's working with or she's working with the some technicians or scientists will last more than 3-4 months, they can start it, of course, in the first months while other phases are going on, you know, the discussions between the innovation catalysts and the local expert groups and so forth. The second thing is a bit about the budget. So let's say the creative is working on a project that will take a high amount, let's say 80% of the budget that comes in for, let's say, technical research, prototyping, that in some cases, you know, let's say when you're coming to some fabrication of prototypes can be very expensive. Would that be acceptable in the line that, okay, we have this call for the creatives, but then the technical company will get, let's say, 80% of the money because they will invest materials, fabrication of the prototype and so forth. That would not be a problem for this call.
No, in principle, you are entitled to do that. Again, of course, the budget will not change. So that's if you give more to a collaborator who you need to hire, it means less for you as beneficiary. That is how you should see it, of course. What could be important is that you are right. We have phases. These phases, we want everybody to try to follow those phases. That's also how we set up the program. But the very rigid moment is, of course, the final presentation, which will be in Italy or in Germany. And in the end, it will mean that every project will be dedicated, funneled to one of two locations, depending on where it fits best. It must be done by then, or at least presentable by then. So if you collaborate with a company to produce something or to prototype something, we need to have the assurance from you and that company, for instance, by how you have collaborated in the past or how you are planning to do it, that this will actually be done in time, and that is not something that will come out of your hands, let's say. You will be the end responsible for concluding the project, not a company that you bring in to hire.
Just related to that expectations that you say, like if you're going to produce and prototype and experiment, the cost can be very high. Of course, we hope that most of the fee and production goes to the artist. And we do understand that for certain expertise, you need to include partners. But I think it's also good to explain a bit that the prototypes and the types of work that will result from these residencies, it might be also that further on, later on, you will develop an additional larger installation and an immersive experience. Perhaps, Chiara, you could explain a bit what we mean with prototype parks and the type of results that might come out of it?
Yes, for sure. The idea is really to show the process at this stage, because we know that the residency will finish the production phase in July. And if you want to show really near in the time in October, November, maybe the big, huge final installation will not be ready. We have in mind this. We have for sure. We know that nothing so incredible and huge would be finalized for this time. So the idea is to show the process, and we'll do work with each artist to understand how we can arrange this in the best way. So we not expected for October, November, the work running in a really proper way, let's say.
Yeah, so the difference between a large immersive installation or we do expect certain outcomes from the fellowship in this trajectory. But it might be that as an artwork, it will need more time to be evolved on later. And that's something also which will be in close discussions, but also part of your proposal, especially for those that are shortlisted. This is one of the selection criteria related also to the implementation plan. How realistic is the outcome? If you would have as an outcome of this residency a large immersive installations covering 5 rooms with 5 different videos that are interactive, and you have 5 interactive objects, we know that's not possible for that budget. So it's also a bit to you as an artist to come up with a plan that's feasible and realistic and doable within this set budget that you have. So there is another administrative budget type of question. Can we include administrative work in the costs? As Rodolfo said, it's a lump sum, and those are part of your fee in that. So yes, that's part of it, and that's something for you to allocate your budgets in. And it's specified more. Can we include administrative work in the cost? I mean, can we hire someone with the fellowship money to do this minimum administrative budget housekeeping? Yes, again, you're free to do that. Another question, meaning that the proposal must have potential to grow after the grant. That is an option, of course. It might be that the whole work is finished within this proposal. On the other hand, it will be exhibited in a prototyping park, and we are searching for those artistic research, artistic interventions, and indeed they might grow and spur afterwards. And that's also what we're searching for, the spillover effects, and all the different activities we're going to organize around it and afterwards are geared towards giving you the potential also to keep on growing with it, but keep the proposal towards this fellowship. So this is what I would like to do and achieve in this fellowship.
Yes, I saw another question, Leah, from Jan. So the artist should produce an invoice to you. I think with you, you mean the project. No, the artist will not produce an invoice to us. This is how European projects never work, and this is no difference. If you are selected, you will sign a contract with Repairing the Present. And a contract basically has 3 parts. It has the part of your proposal, what you propose to do. It has the part where it states what kind of agreements we agree upon in terms of when will you be coming to the fellowship host, to the regional start center, what activities are you going to be part of, etc. And it stipulates, of course, the information that you agree with, committing to these timelines and the deadline. Based on that contract, we will give out, or each individual center will be paying directly towards the beneficiary. No invoices attached, also no VAT attached. This is VAT free in that sense, and based upon these 3 moments in time that we explained earlier, how it works. Then I got another question, but I think it was by mistake a direct message to me. Is the institution presenting the final work contributing for the building up on site, or again, this needs to come out of the artist budget? What is included in the artist budget is transportation. So it is your responsibility that the outcome gets to the presenting institution, so the prototype park place. The installment on site is part of our responsibility.
I have another question here related to IP. What are the contractual conditions related to IP and copyrights of the produced works?
Yes, so IP and copyrights lie with the creator. This means that when the artist creates an idea or something which is, of course, creates something, then the IP automatically lies with the creator, thus the artist. It could mean in some of the challenges where the involvement of the fellowship host or another partner is stronger, and also in terms of development or execution, that a part could end up being shared IP, if it is clear that there are more than one creators of that IP. That is how it's formalized, and that's also how it will be presented in the fellowship contract. If you build on from existing IP, so you bring in something that you've done previously to this project and you continue on that, then that is considered background IP. So you say, I've already done this, and we mention that in the contract so that there's no unclarity around the IP of that.
Thank you. Then we have another. Should we include in the proposal how we want to present the fellowship process in an exhibition format? At this stage, no. That will be something we will discuss during the fellowship and residency trajectory. So at this stage in your proposal, focus on what you would like to do and create. We have 4 minutes left. So is there someone with urgent questions without them not being able to apply? Is it possible to propose an already existing project? Thank you for asking that. No, we ask you to come up with a proposal related to that challenge and what you would like to do in that specific local regional context in collaboration with the fellowship partner and the Regional Start Center. Of course, it might be that there is already work done, which you can add in your portfolio, and you can build upon that and create additional elements. That's a possibility. But one-on-one, an existing project, that's not the idea of this open call. The idea is that something new is being developed. Time for the very last question. Otherwise, you can always refer to our guide for applicants or our frequently asked questions. You can rewatch this video, and if there are specific doubts, you can email to hello@repairingthepresence.eu. I would like to thank you all for your interest in this call and being here to listen to our process. We really much look forward to your applications, and we are looking to your proposals and hope we can collaborate with those that give us those propelling and interesting collaborations. I would like to thank all the participants of Repairing the Presence for being here. And then I will give a last final question to finish this round, which just popped up in the chat. Is the artwork prototype remaining in the ownership of the artist, or will it become part of a collection? That will depend on the challenge you are applying for. In certain cases, there is nothing meant about that, and then it will be of the artist itself. In other challenges, there are some references made, and it might be that there will be a derivative, or that collaboratively there will be made an additional artist proof and +1 or +2. So read carefully through the different challenges, what they expect during the residency or the fellowship from you. And then soon you will hear the bell rings again out of the church I have here next to my place. It's 12 o'clock. I would like to thank you all. Well, wishing you a good Friday afternoon and perhaps a pleasant weekend. Please stay in touch, and we really look forward to all your applications. Thank you.